Hey y'all, welcome back to our podcast. It's Like It or Love It with the Pattersons. I'm Shaumese, and
I'm Josh.
we're actually doing our segment today. What in the world? We usually do. We usually review movies, and TV shows and like the latest films. But we do have a segment called What in the World, where we just talk about what is going on in the world. And this week is Black Breastfeeding Week, so we do have a guest on. Yay. You're actually our first guest. So our first person that we have interviewed. So this is really good. So we just want you to just tell us what your name is and just introduce yourself. Like just tell us something about you, and then we can get into the topic.
Great. Well, I'm Dr. Stacy Yeager, and I am a business owner, entrepreneur, and community advocate. I am the founder of the nonprofit Black Families Do Breastfeed. In my career, I began the Black Breastfeeding Group for Women back in 2013 when my little one was only 3 months old. And I created the organization because the first 3 months are the hardest for women. And I was looking for support, especially from the Black community. And I realized that there was no group near me. I live in Kansas, yay. There wasn't any group near me that had that support. And when I looked online back in 2013, it wasn't any groups for Black breastfeeding moms. So I decided to start the group, and now it's bloomed to almost 100,000 women. I'm sure it surpassed that number with women coming and going. As you finish breastfeed, women leave, but probably we've served over 100,000 Black women to breastfeed. Locally, I am the Black breastfeeding coordinator for my county, and I try to do whatever I can to help Black breastfeeding women, not only in the United States, but we do have 6 other countries that are heavily involved in our group. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being on our podcast. And so let me just say also before we get into this, I am a member of the Breastfeeding Support Group on Facebook, and I did blog about it because it has really helped me. It's like a ton of information on there, and basically you just go on and search. If you have any issue that you have, you just go on and search, and you could just get help with anything pretty much. So I just kind of feel like I don't even know. Like, I feel like there's just so much stuff on there that it's a lot for me to learn, I feel like I've only learned like the general things about breastfeeding, if that makes sense. But yeah, we can get into the topic. Like I was saying earlier, this week is Black Breastfeeding Week, and August is National Breastfeeding Month. And I know that there is a theme this year. Can you talk about what the theme is for this year?
Yes. Actually, how Black Breastfeeding Week came along is because of the need for Black moms to be acknowledged that we do breastfeed. And there's an actual organization called Black Breastfeeding Week who specializes in making sure that this week is knowledgeable through all organizations. So it's not something that my organization came from. If you do a search for Black Breastfeeding Week, you will come across the organization that started this. And this year's theme for 2020 is Revive, Restore, and Reclaim. And the way when we think about how can we revive and reclaim, how can we make sure that we used to in our communities, we used to be in our communities the one to breastfeed, to carry on that tradition, but somehow through the years it's kind of been lost. So now it's our goal to reclaim it. And so revive it means that we're going to do activities, even in the midst of COVID, to make sure that we have people who know that Black people do breastfeed. Mm-hmm. Restoring our village, meaning that we want to help restore and let people understand that breastfeeding is the norm for women, and we want to restore the pride in breastfeeding. Back in the day, in the 70s, when formula companies started getting larger, it was like, well, poor people breastfeed. If you have money, you formula feed. So we don't want that to be the case. We want this to be the norm and restore that every woman breastfeeds, no matter the class, and then reclaim our rightful place in breastfeeding. Black women who breastfeed, we have low initiation rates and it goes lower as the child gets older. We know that we try to get women to 6 months, but the actual goal is 12 months because you need either 12 months of breastfeeding, breast milk, or formula. You can't just say, okay, 6 months, I'm done, and put the child on food. That's not how it works. So our goal is to get them to 12 months to reclaim that first year. And how that leads into the first year, that also relates to infant mortality. In the Black community, our Black babies die 3 times the rate of white babies, the same rate as third world countries. So countries that don't even have running water, electricity, resources, their babies are in some communities able to live longer than our babies here in the United States. So we want to reclaim, again, our place as being able to help the community so our babies can live even past 1 year of age.
Okay. And you did kind of touch on it, but I wanted to, as we discussed, I wanted to talk about like why it's important for Black women to breastfeed. But I also wanted to start with like the history of Black women breastfeeding. Can you talk about like I don't know if this is a crazy question to ask, but like have Black women always breastfed? And like basically like where does the history start as far as us breastfeeding?
Well, we have to remember as Black people, we did come to this country by force. So we know that our history starts before we arrived here in the United States, before being stolen and enslaved. So even if you go back to the Bible clearly talks about how when the baby was found in the river. Yeah, baby was found in the river. Now Pharaoh's daughter told the servant to go breastfeed the baby. Go take it as your own. And then we know in the story it was actually the baby's mom who breastfed the baby. So breastfeeding has been around since the beginning of time because it's the first food. You know, woman was made first, then she cholesterol is what made the baby's stomach feel full. And so since the beginning of time, women have only had their breasts to sustain life. So that's where it started. And then before formula, we would have what we call wet nurses if a woman could not breastfeed.
He just had so much energy tonight.
I read about the wet nurse thing, and a lot of people feel that some Black women shouldn't breastfeed because of the history of that. Because the history of wet nurses.
And so the history of wet nurses, and I think for those people, education needs to happen because I always remind people our history did not start in slavery.
Right.
We did not start enslaved. And so even before that, when we were in the continent of Africa and other countries, we breastfed each other's baby. If a woman had to go and do the hunting, in, Uganda, Malawi, South Africa, Ethiopia, if a woman had to go to work or go out to the fields, their next door neighbor would just get the baby and breastfeed. Also, grandparents, even to this day, for instance, if a woman was having trouble breastfeeding, her mom could come breastfeed and her body would relactate. And that's popular in a lot of Asian cultures where their mom will breastfeed their baby for them if they're not available. And so formula just was something that was created as a fill-in for that. And so with those people say, well, slavery kept us. No, actually, all through history, before formula was created, we still breastfed our babies or someone breastfed them. So I would say don't be discouraged by that. And our history, really, truly, if we're the creators of this earth and, women are the birth of the nation, we, we started breastfeeding. That's our thing.
Okay. And I was finna ask you something, but I forgot what it was. So you were talking about the history. What I was gonna say was I was looking forward to this conversation because I knew about wet nursing, but when I actually looked it up, I was just like, I just felt like I wanted to cry because I knew about wet nursing, but I didn't, I guess, know like the specific details. And from what I was reading, it was just saying that the slaves would be forced to feed the white kids, and then they wouldn't be able like to feed their own kids. And then it was also a way for like the slave owner's wife to demean the slave. And so, I did talk about in my I shared my breastfeeding journey on my blog, and I did talk about how I do feel like grateful and honored that I'm able to breastfeed and just be able to live in this time because of what our ancestors had to go through. And I also talked about how basically I think because there's so much education today and like people are bringing awareness to breastfeeding that I didn't really even see like another option. And breastfeeding even changed my mindset even about drinking like cow's milk. So I did talk about that, but
yeah, because like, we don't drink milk, but if you look up how cows are treated and what they go through from impregnation and getting their calves taken from them and them crying all night for those babies to come back because they lactate like us only by getting pregnant. They don't just lactate to lactate. They have to get impregnated to keep them their milk producing. So it's very sad how cows are treated. And I would say even the chemicals that we give to our babies that are put in the formula. If you've ever taken time to read the ingredients on the formula can, you'll understand that a lot of them is not natural, And so many questions as well, if I can't breastfeed, what's the alternative? We always recommend donor milk, starting with your immediate family first, then your friends, then your community. So if you need donor milk, breastfeeding friendly hospitals will tell moms who have NICU babies, have someone from your family bring up breast milk or pump your own, until your milk comes in, to use your resources to feed the baby extra nutrients to fortify them. So yeah, there's a long history and knowledge of breastfeeding.
And I actually did not know about donor's milk until I had to get it. And it was interesting because I actually talked to a WIC counselor and she knew about donor's milk, but for some reason she didn't mention it to me. But when I talked to my midwife, she was like, "Oh, you can get donor's milk and it's free." So I was glad for that because I really didn't want him to get on formula. But as far as like being educated, do you know like any books or any resources as far as like learning about the history of breastfeeding?
Well, and when we think about the history of breastfeeding, most people who are CLCs or breastfeeding certified or peer counselors, facilitators, one book is The Womanly Art of Breastfeeding.
Okay, I've heard of
that. Gives you various information about breastfeeding and trouble and situations that may come up, people look at it as a Bible for breastfeeding because everything is in there. Also, Kelly Mom is a resource that we use often in our group as well, because honestly, over the past 7 years that I've had my group, there's now nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
We've seen like literally everything, but what is new are the women. And we have to keep in mind that the history of childbirth did not involve or mean for women to have kids alone, meaning that
Yeah.
a woman can go have a baby in a hospital and never have any other contact with any other human when she brings the baby home. That's not how it was meant to be. When how it's supposed to be is your culture of women will be there when you give birth, before you have birth, after you have birth. The community of women are there. So if you're having problems with breastfeeding, they're there. If you're getting postpartum depression, they're there. If you're tired and can't wake up with the baby, they are there. So this is a time in 2020 where it's lonely, and you can see the effects of that because higher level of postpartum depression and then lack of family that's around to support parents having babies, because you're having to wake up, go to work, maybe stay at home due to COVID, and you don't get a break, right? Unless a family member comes and helps you, it's you guys 24/7, no break, right? Whereas in the village would say this mom needs to sleep, the neighbor's gonna come over, sleep what you want to, mom, dad, do what you need, and we'll be there. And so we have to adapt to our new culture. And we want to bring back the one bring back the sense of family and friends helping you get through the first year, because it's truly the first year is very difficult.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you was gonna say something?
Oh. So is it safe to say that as far as among Black women that we've kind of lost the art of breastfeeding between like us being, I guess, from our homeland and being brought here?
Well, I would say yes, because we see that Hispanic women are the #1 women to breastfeed.
Okay.
So why is that? Although they migrated to the United States, they're able to keep their culture, right? And so when you're able to keep your culture, then you're more likely to be true to it, and you don't have to reteach it. Whereas we did breastfeed our children even after slavery, Jim Crow, through the years. But once again, formula was introduced, it then played on the emotions of women, not only in the United States, but overseas. If you ever get a chance, do research on Nestle formula, how it really preyed on third world countries to where babies died because they had unsafe formula. And so once they got strict on those regulations, then WIC, their partnership with WIC to give women unlimited amount of formula. So if you have the option or trouble of breastfeeding or formula, you have 6 cans every month. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know? And so then they vegetables for women who breastfeed. But still, if you never said, well, formula's not free, we're just going to help you breastfeed and give you extra foods, then what would happen to those companies? You know, so formula is a billion-dollar industry. And so now you will see companies coming after breastfeeding women in various areas, such as the vitamin D drops, such as toddler formula. That's something new.
Oh yeah, I've heard
It's
that
on the shelves now. They
And so,
say it's ruling that they'll say that it helps with like hand-eye coordination,
right. And
stuff
so,
like that.
and so what that's truly saying is now that women are breastfeeding longer than the 6 months, longer than 1 year, we're breastfeeding longer than a year. So it's like we can't even get them after 1 now because they're still breastfeeding. What's going on? And so we have changed the culture. A lot of stats you will see will be from maybe 2015 or 2017. So the stats that the CDC puts out is quite a few years behind. But I will say, because of my group and others like it, you will see the upward trend once 2020 stats get out there. And just like I tell my group, every day we save a baby. Every day we save a mom just from trying to be there to advocate with them, because when moms breastfeed, the likelihoods of SIDS decreases. So more breastfeeding, less infant mortality, less postpartum depression, less disconnectivity from the community.
I can honestly say I'm kind of thankful for your group, because she always tells me what she's reading. She'll be like, "Babe, I'm reading this in the group I'm in." "What group?" "Black Feeding Breast for Mom." I'm like, all right. So she's learning, and I feel like it's helping her along, because obviously as a man, I technically don't understand. I don't understand. I can be told, but I don't really understand. So I'm glad she has that extra support.
And that's why we have the men's group. We do have a men's group now. It's called Daddy Can Do. It's about 3,000 men over there to help educate other men. So the men's group, Daddy Can Do, that group is for husbands of ours, yay. And the moderators in that group is the husbands of our moderators.
Okay.
So therefore, like you said, she's reading this, she's reading that. We said, why not create a group so the men can also learn and be supportive? And that way men who have older children can kind of mentor the seasoned men that come into the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so I think you kind of answered it, but what would you say, like, why do you think it's important for women to breastfeed?
Right.
Breastfeed, I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's important. Yes, honey.
Has a lot of energy tonight.
Yes, one is because your baby is so smart. So their babies have higher IQs when they breastfeed, because the DHA in their milk helps increase. And my children, both of them are gifted. My daughter started college in 10th grade. My reading.
He's trying to talk too.
He's reading at a higher level, although he's in first grade. He's in third and fourth grade. The bonding aspect of it is so valuable, as well as, just being able to do something natural. There's so many synthetic things out here and fake things that we eat and into our body. For our babies' first foods, we really want it to be natural. They have their whole life to be exposed to artificial chemicals and things of that nature. Why not start their first food as natural? And then for women, we know our body recovers quicker. Our uterus contracts as we breastfeed to get it back to the right size it needs to be. So our body naturally heals itself inside out when we breastfeed.
Okay. And then what would you say to, I do hear, not necessarily always to me, but I do hear different comments of Black women of why they chose not to breastfeed. And I'm just, the more I learn, I'm just like, dang, like I wish that they would, I guess, know what I know and have the same education. But I've heard women say that they didn't want their breasts to be saggy, or they stopped breastfeeding because the baby started biting. And I'm just like, man, I just learned about it. So, if they would have known that, there's a solution to that, they could have kept breastfeeding. So what would you say to the Black woman that's either hesitant about breastfeeding, or she just like, I just don't want to breastfeed because I don't want to go through all that?
One, we have to meet women where they are. For women who say they don't want to breastfeed because they'll get saggy breasts, guess what? Our breasts are hereditary. So if it's gonna sag, honey, just keep living. Whether you breastfed or not, those honeys are not gonna stay like they are, honey. They just not. Next, about education. you know, some women just don't know. They think once the baby gets teeth, you can't breastfeed anymore.
Yeah.
Again, that's more knowledge that babies will modify themselves to learn how to suck once they do get teeth. So, you know, I breastfeed 3 years, and you know, teeth, no teeth is just they'll get used to how to do it. Third, some people don't realize that breastfeeding is life. Breastfeeding has our breast milk has living cells. It's a living organism. And so basically what that means is if your baby's sick, our breast milk will modify to make them well. Breastfed babies will take less than breastfed. So I think it's just here's the statistics so they know.
Okay. And then I also think you kind of touched on this too. So there is a correlation between, or would you say there's a correlation between wet nursing and maybe why some women don't want to breastfeed today?
I would say there's no correlation from that because although we were wet nurses, we still had to feed our babies in the early 1920s and 30s. And a lot of stuff about the wet nursing didn't come and was talked about until like maybe formula was out. And so the main reason that our society as a whole stopped breastfeeding is because when formula was introduced, it was introduced as being better for you, more nutritious. So it was just more of a play on, like I said, um, the white coat syndrome, that if you are poor, then you can't afford this milk, you can't afford to do this. It was just like a play. And if you talk to people in foreign countries and you ask them why are they bottle feeding, you'll see the different classes and how the different ideology about why they make it, you know. I just believe that once that was introduced to our community and then with programs giving it away, you know, giving the free formula away, it was just easier if you were having problems to say, oh, well, just get the formula. Even now, one of our new moms got a box load of free formula during the first month. And I'm like, why? How did you get this box? They sent it to you. So if you are having problems, to a lactation consultant to get that fixed, it's easier just to say, well, I got out this big box here. Why not just use it?
Yeah. But it's been so many studies that show. Can I talk? Okay. It's been so many studies that show that actually, can I finish? Actually, with formula, it's been studies recently where a lot of these major formula companies have been having like metal shavings in their formula.
Yeah.
So for them to be a quote unquote healthy alternative, it just proves that breastfeeding is still better.
Right. Well, and then remember, like if you ask an older person, and I think I did this a couple of years ago, and I'll do it again. If I ask my 87, well, she breastfed, but if you ask an older lady why they didn't breastfeed, they're not going to say, oh, it's because of the wet nurses, and they're not going to say that. You know, so I encourage you, reach out to those 60, 70-year-old ladies you may know and say, hey, did you breastfeed? And then if they say no, ask why. And you know, from me posting that in the group, we saw there was no mention of wet nurse. There was no mention of slavery at all as a reason why. Some of them may have said I didn't breastfeed because I had to go work. So my next door neighbor breastfed or made a solution up until I could get home. And my grandmother would always tell the story of how her kids wouldn't eat when she got back home, you know. And so she just decided not to work at all. She just stayed at home because she couldn't be away from the kids. So my grandfather provided for her to be a stay-at-home mom until her kids were grown and grandkids. So
Yeah. Yeah, being home definitely helps breastfeeding, because when I first started breastfeeding, I just felt like I was on the couch all day. So
yeah. And
So needed.
some women, again, new moms, you think every time they cry, you put them on there. And you have to remember cluster feeding
yeah.
is something I'm sure you didn't know of until you came into the breastfeeding world. But babies cluster feed, and so baby wearing, and we're bringing that back too. Baby wearing is something where you wear your baby on your back or wear them and you keep on doing what you need to do so that you can multitask. But that baby, they want that sucking because it's comforting. But when they're on their back or you're wearing them and walking as you do stuff, they get that comfort from that attachment to you. That's in. And I always tell people research about the breathing patterns of babies. Your baby is so connected to you as a mom that if you lay down and take a nap, your body will automatically form a cocoon like setting around your baby. And you and your baby's heart rhythm will be on the same rhythm, the same breath. It's like they're still connected to you. And what does that do long term? That helps their emotional connectivity with their mind. It helps their mental stability. It helps their oxytocin when, anxiety. People talk about they got anxiety. We find babies that are disconnected from their mom have higher levels of anxiety. And so when people say you probably wasn't held as a baby, have y'all ever heard that saying?
What was it saying?
You probably were not held as a baby.
Oh yeah.
You probably wasn't held as a baby. They're really saying that because of the lack of emotional connection or emotional balance. And that's probably true. Because, many times we say put the baby in their own bed, put them down. They don't need to be held, put them in a stroller. We're one of the only countries, again, that don't have their baby close to them often. It's like put them in a stroller, put them in a car, just don't, give them their space. And so when they grow up, where's that emotional connection?
Yeah.
They don't have it because they've been pushed away. These babies early push away everybody. Then when it's time to come to people, it's not there. So
yeah.
I go on and on about that though.
Yeah. We had to talk about that too, because I was always getting him and stuff, so, but I was just thinking, like, I'm not gonna just sit there and let him cry. So
right. And remember, until 1 year of age, we got to get them to one. And then it's like, I look at my kids, 7. How do I want them to be emotionally? They have their whole life to be disconnected from you, sleep in their own bed, go away. And actually, as teenagers, you gonna send them to their own bed. But because of how they were raised to always know I was gonna be there to pick them up, that they can lay on me, I don't have problems like other people have with a teenager. We're not butting heads and all. I mean, we disagree, but it's just not that level of, I don't know, disconnectivity. You want a good relationship to your kids to where they know they can depend on you to come to pick them up, blah blah blah. And so they'll sleep on their own, and trust me, they ain't gonna want to be with you after 3, 4.
yeah, he's starting to. Well, I guess we can talk about it after this, so this video won't be long. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all of my questions.
And so what would you recommend to a new mom?
What would I recommend?
What would you recommend to new moms? What would you tell them?
As far as breastfeeding, I would say breastfeed as long as you can, and just know that it's the best thing that you can do for your baby. And I mean, it's kind of like you said, it's natural. So it's kind of like, why wouldn't you want that for your baby? And I think I would just say that just stick in there, because when you first start breastfeeding, it's just gonna seem like it's just gonna seem hard, basically. And even now, it is kind of hard as far as like him always being on me and me trying to like do stuff around the house. But I think you just gotta figure out what works for you. But I would just say try to breastfeed as long as you can, and just know that you know, you're doing the best thing for your baby. So that's how I try to look at it. Like, you know, I mean, like you said, it's only gonna be for a couple of years. I don't know. I'm gonna self wean, so I don't know how long it's gonna go, but it's only gonna be for a couple of years. So it's just kind of like, you know, this is temporary discomfort or inconvenience for something that's like long term. So
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know why he has so much energy tonight. But
I would agree. I think it's very important for new moms to understand to be patient with themselves, for new dads to understand to be patient with themselves. You're learning, and give yourself time to adjust.
yeah.
You know, there's no perfect baby, and sleeping through the night is not the norm. We want babies to wake up, you know, even after when we want babies to wake up overnight. We want them to have it, because that shows that it's a growing baby. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, did you have anything else? You had questions or anything?
No, you pretty much touched it all, baby.
Okay. And did you, as far as our listeners on our podcast, did you have something going on, or did you want to,
Yeah.
you know, tell about your social media sites and stuff?
Yes. So follow us on Black Families Do Breastfeed. Black Families Do Breastfeed. We have events going on all week long. So if you tune into our YouTube page, we'll be having postings every day. If you're in our month, again, we'll be having postings and going live every single day, so that we can help provide education. We also will be having a birth education class for breastfeeding, so we'll specifically focus on breastfeeding. So that's coming up as well. So, our Instagram is melanatedmilkies. So follow us on there as well. So yeah.
Okay. And then I'll put your information on our page as well. So
Okay, great.
we just want to thank you so much for this. Like we said earlier, you are our first person that we interviewed. So this is like special to us, because we did have somebody we were going to interview. She said she played in a movie, but we never got to her. So, so yay. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.